All right, and good evening, and welcome to No Kings on the Hill. And I am your host, Dr. Hill Law. Joe's not with me tonight for episode 21. Tonight, we are stepping away from the slogans and diving into constitutional structure. The question is whether you support or oppose sanctuary cities. The question is this: what can Congress actually do under the Constitution? Can Congress outlaw sanctuary states? Can federal funding be conditioned on immigration cooperation? And why do we keep hearing that the filibuster is some sacred constitutional safeguard when it doesn't appear anywhere in the Constitution? Also, please make sure to smash the subscribe or follow, depending on how you're watching us tonight, and tap that notification bell and like and share this live so we can reach more people you feel might benefit from this show. And don't forget to engage through the comments or by checking out our website, No Kings on the Hill with drlaw.com, where you can sign up with your email to gain access to our weekly blog and engage through our reviews and emails and let us know if there are any specific topics you would like us to cover. This episode is all about federalism, the spending clause, the anti-commandeering doctrine, and Senate procedure, not partisan talking points. Let's begin where all of this starts: constitutional authority, after a word from our sponsors.
Heard of Q broadcast? It's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Starz. And the best part? There are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
All right, so sanctuary cities, DHS funding, the filibuster. 3 popular flashpoints with one thing in common: the Constitution. Tonight on No Kings on the Hill, episode 21, we tackle a question our politicians refuse to answer. Can Congress ban sanctuary cities without breaking the Constitution? If not, what can they legally do instead? Plus, why the filibuster is unconstitutional, it is not sacred, and can be ended tomorrow, no matter what they want to say. Are you not hearing me? Oh, hold on a second. I don't know why my mic is not working. Let me make sure it's... Can y'all hear me now? All right. So yeah, y'all are hearing me. Okay. Just, I didn't see it moving on the bottom. All right. So let's do this. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So for tonight, let's start out with the theme, which is sovereignty, power, and the 2026 structural reset. Most conversations around sanctuary cities, sanctuary states take place at the ideological level. Talk of immigration laws versus border security versus public safety is all well and good if you want to yell at people on the internet. But if we're going to talk constitutionally, we need to talk about the structure of government and who has what authority to do what. As we know from the 10th Amendment, the federal government only possesses those powers delegated to by the Constitution. All other powers are reserved to the states. This matters because the Supreme Court has repeatedly upheld the anti-commandeering doctrine. Basically, this means the federal government can't force states to administer or enforce regulatory programs. Congress cannot pass a law that says states shall enforce federal immigration law and believe it will withstand it will stand constitutional challenges. The court has been clear that the federal government cannot force state officers to do its bidding. But that does not mean Congress is completely powerless, and of course not. Enter the spending clause. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to spend for the general welfare of the United States. The Supreme Court has recognized Congress can place limits on those funds with some caveats. Any conditions on federal funds that Congress may provide to the states must be clear and unambiguous. They can't just be vague suggestions. Conditions must relate to the federal program itself. Congress can't withhold all funds from enforcement efforts. It would be considered too coercive, a gun to the states' heads, which they can't do that. And any conditions that violate our other constitutional protections would obviously be impermissible. Okay, but what does that actually mean that they can do? And that's what I've had people asking me on my TikTok lives this last week. That's why I thought I'd really cover this. Also, if I don't get to the comments as fast, I'm sorry, but since I'm here tonight myself, I don't have time to always look at the screen and open that. And also, if y'all could please really share with this new thing that X has got going, where they're not you have to share it out. They're not pushing your lives out as a post. It's really starting to hurt the views until they can get this stuff fixed. So if you could please help by sharing it out and posting it on your feed, that would be much appreciated. So what it means is Congress can't likely criminalize the state's refusal to partner with the federal government on immigration enforcement, but Congress could place limits on certain federal law enforcement grants, homeland security grants, and other discretionary programs that fund state and local law enforcement if those conditions encourage cooperation, i.e. information sharing, honoring federal detainer requests, etc. But the keys here are certain funds and encourage. Those conditions would have to be narrowly triggered to pass constitutional muster. Congress couldn't begin slashing unrelated funding, Medicaid, say, or broad infrastructure funding as punishment, because that would likely be viewed as coercive. Remember, the Constitution does not say Congress cannot ban sanctuary cities. The Constitution says Congress cannot require states to enforce federal immigration law. But it also says Congress can place conditions on the funds it chooses to give states. Can Congress defund sanctuary states? Well, the better question is, can Congress place limits on federal funds in such a way that encourages states and localities not to obstruct federal immigration authorities? That would be a far more defensible argument, and narrowly tailored legislation would stand a much better chance of being upheld if challenged. Now, remember what I said about the Senate filibuster earlier. Here's where people get it wrong. The filibuster is not constitutional. The Constitution lays out when supermajorities are required, and it's only in very specified instances: ratifying treaty negotiations, impeachment convictions, amending the Constitution, and overriding presidential vetoes. Article 1 legislation, otherwise, both chambers operate under a simple majority rule. The 60-vote supermajority we see hoisted upon us today is a Senate rule. It's called Rule 22, and it governs cloture of this on the Senate floor. The rule has been changed several times throughout Senate history. It's been modified by those who sit here and criticize today, trust me. It is not part of the Constitution. Article 5 does not require it. The founders did not include it. It is a parliamentary procedure, meaning if a simple majority in the Senate wants to change it, they can. We call it the nuclear option these days. When folks argue that legislation cannot pass because of constitutional limitations when discussing the filibuster, they are simply wrong. The limitation is not constitutional, it's political, and understanding that difference is important. And it seems like it's another area where our country has failed us today in not teaching civics in high school and not teaching civics in college, to where I don't know how many comments I've gotten on my social media post of, do you not believe in the Constitution? Do you not believe in this? Excuse me, I got to get a drink here. And I'm like, yeah, because it's not Constitution. It has nothing to do with it. Now, if Congress, a majority of Congress, wanted to place new limits on federal funding related to immigration, they would need to write new legislation, craft that legislation in a way that doesn't violate the principle above, decide if they want to play by the Senate rules or change those rules. That is the constitutional option. Now, I didn't have time, unfortunately, today to look at the most recently proposed bill by Republicans against sanctuary cities. So I would hope that this is the line that their bill is following, but we'll have to see. Now, Congress does have authority. The debate isn't about whether they have zero ability to restrict funds. The debate is about whether Congress wants to be meticulous in how they use that authority. So let's join me in here tonight as I dive into where those lines are drawn and starting tonight. So I'm going to get on here to segment 1. I'll probably pause somewhere in between just to get a drink because I'll be doing this show by myself tonight. I don't have my co-host with me. So let's get started. Now, the constitutionality of sanctuary cities and what Congress can actually do first, rhetoric needs to be divorced from reality. When we talk about banning sanctuary cities, what we are actually talking about is whether Congress can force states or local municipalities to cooperate with the federal government on immigration enforcement. As noted above, immigration enforcement indisputably falls within federal power. However, just because the federal government can enforce immigration laws doesn't mean it can force states to enforce them. That's where federalism constraints apply. Congress is limited by the anti-commandeering doctrine. Under the 10th Amendment, the Supreme Court has held that the Congress cannot compel states or state officials to administer and enforce a federal regulatory program. See New York v. United States, Prince v. United States, and Murphy v. NCAA. Now, I guess I can go ahead. I'm also going to switch over to my... No, that's not what I wanted. Oh, that's what I was looking for. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get through this because this kind of goes over everything we've talked about. It kind of goes over the Article 1 Naturalization Clause, 10th Amendment. I haven't talked about the supremacy yet, and then obviously the anti-commandeering clause. Here is the cases I'm talking about right now. So bring it up so you can see that. Now, this means Congress cannot enact a law that requires state, local law enforcement to honor federal immigration detainers. That option is off the table. However, Congress can offer states an incentive not to. Congress can use its spending power, Article 1, Section 8. Congress can place conditions on the receipt of federal funds, South Dakota v. Dole, and NFIB, and the NFIB v. Sebelius. The condition must be clear, related to the federal interest in a particular program, non-coercive, and not violate any other constitutional provisions. All right, so that gets us to that point. So now what Congress can is define what constitutes a sanctuary jurisdiction under federal statute, condition certain DHS or DOJ law enforcement grant programs on information sharing requirements, impose a penalty by withholding discretionary Homeland Security funding for noncompliance, require certification of cooperation with federal immigration authorities as a condition of receiving federal grants. All right, but Congress cannot pull unrelated funding, such as Medicaid, criminalize the state's decision not to cooperate, and require states to run federal enforcement operations. The difference is offering an incentive versus issuing a command. Courts will then decide if the condition on the funding is so large that it constitutes coercion, a gun to the head, in NFIB's words. As such, Congress cannot outright ban sanctuary cities, but that doesn't mean Congress is completely powerless. All right, I'm going to take a drink and get on to the Section 2 here. All right, so Section 2, we're going to do the filibuster, history, myth, and parliamentary reality. So let's talk about the filibuster now. Because if there's one thing people assume we can never change, it's the filibuster. It's true that the Constitution enshrines supermajorities in only a handful of very specific instances: treaties, impeachments, convictions, constitutional amendments, and veto overrides. But simple majority rule is the default for ordinary legislation. So how did the filibuster come about? In 1806, senators abolished the previous question motion at the request of the then Vice President Aaron Burr, who's also known for, if anybody knows their history, Aaron Burr was a treasonous murderer. He was famous for him and Hamilton's duel, where he killed former President Alexander Hamilton, and then was charged with treason. So the man that literally gave us what we have today was convicted of treason, which is the scary thing. So what's happened is the previous question was a parliamentary procedure that allowed senators to end debate with a simple majority vote, which is still used in Congress. But Burr thought the rule was unnecessary. Its absence, however, left the Senate without a formal procedure to end debate by majority vote. The filibuster was born. It wasn't until 1917 that the Senate adopted Rule 22, which allowed for cloture to be invoked by a 2/3 majority. The percentage was lowered to 60 senators in 1975. So as you can see, which once we had the 1975 lowered threshold of 60, we got what we know as the modern zombie filibuster today. All right. So that's where we're at now. But two other things changed about the filibuster during its modern history. It became what we know as the standing or zombie filibuster. Historically, senators could only filibuster by occupying the floor, otherwise known as a talking filibuster. Obstruction has become much easier because senators can now simply announce their intention to filibuster, instantly requiring a 60 vote threshold. The actual traditional act of filibustering, standing on the floor and speaking, is no longer necessary. Unsurprisingly, this ease has led to a significant increase in the use of the filibuster. The filibuster is not, I repeat, not a constitutional requirement. It is a role that the Senate created for itself under Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution, which allows each chamber to determine the rules of its proceedings. That means that a simple majority can amend or repeal the rule. And if the 60-vote filibuster goes, what comes in its place? I've got a few ideas, but one replacement would be to reinstate the previous question motion that the House still uses. I mean, the House of Representatives currently does. It allows each side a defined amount of time to debate. Once that time expires, a majority can move to the previous question to end the debate. It passes with a simple majority and the chamber moves to vote. This allows majority rule to function while still allowing for robust debate. It ends infinite filibustering and doesn't end deliberation. Now, what I don't like is how freaking Leader Thune is trying to say that, oh, we don't have enough time for a standing filibuster, but that's literally what that's what Congress does. I mean, if anybody remembers here not too long ago, Hakeem Jeffries did like a 24-hour filibuster or debate on the floor of the House. So somehow Senate doesn't have time to do it, but Congress does. And also a lot of times the minority will not do a filibuster because they know that it's not going to change the vote, that the majority has that vote, and they don't want to spend 24, 36, 48 hours standing up there debating. Now, sometimes they will. It just depends. So that's why you don't see as many filibustering in the House versus what you see in the Senate due to the filibuster that we know of in the Senate. Now, if we didn't have that and it was what it was originally entailed as at the creation of the Constitution and when the original rules were created parliamentary-wise, and now what I am going to get into is a lot of people argue, oh, well, that's not democracy, or that, oh, it should be a supermajority. And actually, if you go back to our founding fathers, it's not that way. Now, I'm going to do this part, and then I'll get to that one. Yeah, this is the one. So, now, fine. But if we're going to talk about abolishing or reforming the filibuster, let's ask ourselves this. What did the founding fathers have to say about supermajority thresholds? Alexander Hamilton addressed this issue directly in the Federalist number 22, writing that supermajority rules rendering the government altogether incompetent to its chief purposes by substituting the pleasure, caprice, or artifices of an insignificant, turbulent, or corrupt junt into the regular deliberations and decisions of a respectable majority. Hamilton was, of course, speaking of the Articles of Confederation, which required supermajorities and created gridlock. He was making the straightforward argument that supermajority thresholds empower minorities and hamstring government. The Constitution that replaced it enshrined that philosophy. Supermajorities are required only in specific enumerated cases. For regular legislation, it's a simple majority. The filibuster requires 60 votes to cut off debate on legislation. It is not enumerated in the Constitution as a rule. All right. James Madison cautioned in Federalist number 10 about the dangers of minority and majority factions. But his preferred solution was not a minority veto. It was republicanism, checks and balances, and an extended republic. The Constitution did not establish a minority roadblock in the Senate. It established bicameralism and presidential veto, already significant checks. Instituting a permanent supermajority requirement for ordinary legislation is un-Madisonian. It is a subsequent rules change. So now let's get into federal supremacy and national interest. Now let's apply that to sanctuary cities. The founders obviously intended federal law to be supreme when it comes to issues of national interest. In Federalist number 33, Alexander Hamilton was writing in support of the Supremacy Clause specifically. He wrote that when the Constitution has delegated the power to Congress, the exercise of that power is supreme. and a law of Congress made in pursuance of the Constitution shall be a supreme law of the land, whatever legislative acts the state may pass to the contrary. Again, all this stuff that everybody's complaining about and saying that we need today is not what they intended for us. It's not what our founding fathers gave us. It's not what they wanted for us. But yet, for some reason, that is what everybody still wants to push. I don't get it. I mean, it's that simple. If we get rid of it and we don't do it and we go back to the Constitution like we were meant to, everything's better. And we don't have to worry about all this stuff. I'm sorry, I'm just checking trying to see if the Law Native, I usually have a whole lot more on Law Native because they're not pushing it out as a post anymore. It is, except for when you share it or repost it. Yeah, it's kind of screwing up my views on X. I couldn't even show it when I shared it to somebody. So, yeah, let's go ahead and keep going. I was just trying to check my comments and stuff there. Yeah, so immigration enforcement is as an extension of sovereignty and national defense. Is certainly an issue of national interest. The 10th Amendment may protect states from federal commandeering, but it doesn't give states the power to override federal law. That's different. States can't prevent the federal government from enforcing immigration laws. They can refuse to help, but they cannot stand in the way. That is what allows for carefully constructed federal grants that require cooperation on immigration. So let's look at Washington on nationality unity. Now, George Washington cautioned about sectionalism destroying national unity in his farewell address. Federalism allows for both regional self-rule and national consistency. Border control and foreign affairs should be national issues. Federal enforcement, fractured without consequence, destroys national consistency. Congress has the power to uphold that consistency when acting constitutionally. So, again, our founding fathers did not go for what we're in now. So what does the founding era analysis suggest? The Constitution favors majority rule for legislation, not supermajority. Supermajority requirements were seen as destabilizing. Federal supremacy applies in areas of enumerated national power. States cannot nullify a federal law, though they cannot be commandeered. Reforming or removing the filibuster is consistent with Hamilton's warning against paralysis. And I mean, come on, look at our government. It's been paralyzed. The House has passed over 400 and some odd bills, 50 some odd codified, or 50 or 70 some odd codifications of President Trump's executive orders and other stuff. And the Senate has only actually passed 58 of those bills into law. We have had 3 government shutdowns in the last year because of the filibuster. It needs to be removed. The standing filibuster could still be used if you were to give a previous question motion. That still leaves the standing filibuster. It just removes what we call today as the zombie filibuster. Because the zombie filibuster allows somebody to say, oh, we're going to filibuster, but they don't actually have to get up there and say anything. They can just not vote. And it's done and talk behind the closed doors. They don't actually have to get up and tell America why they're filibustering. They don't actually have to tell everybody. They can just say whatever they want in front, but they don't actually have to go out and say it. They can say whatever they want behind closed doors and negotiate, but they don't have to say it on the floor of the Senate or the floor of the House. And that's why we need to get rid of the filibuster. I mean, structuring funding conditions to discourage sanctuary policies when narrowly tailored is consistent with federal supremacy in national matters. The founders did not design a system where minority procedural tools permanently block national legislation. They designed a system of enumerated powers, checks, and accountability. And while this is a little bit off topic, I also want to go into this as everybody goes, oh, there's 3 co-equal branches. No, they created 2 co-equal branches with 1 less co-equal branch to check the other 2 co-equal branches. The Supreme Court, the judiciary was never meant to be co-equal to the legislative and the executive. It was meant to be a less co-equal branch to check those 2, not to be at the same power level as them. So, okay, let's stop theorizing. Let's start drafting. If Congress wants to craft a bill to disincentivize sanctuary cities that can withstand constitutional scrutiny, what does that legislation look like? It does not include commandments. No shall enforce this, no must detain that, no criminal penalties for disobedience. Instead, it ties eligibility for certain federal grants from DHS, DOJ, etc. to certifications of compliance with federal information sharing laws. Access to federal detention space for the purposes of expanding capacity only in those jurisdictions that will cooperate with ICE detainers. Homeland Security grant funding meant for preparedness plans requires coordination with federal officials in writing. It's all about eligibility. Congress isn't forcing them to do anything. Congress is just specifying who is eligible to receive federal funds and under what conditions. Courts review those laws under a different framework than they do mandates. It's the same thing. The only reason why states are able to do what they are now with sanctuary cities and sanctuary policies, they do the same thing. They're not saying that they will stop the federal government from coming in. They just say they won't coordinate with them. But when they try to start banning federal, the one area that's pushing a line is when they're trying to start banning ICE and stuff from coming on certain property. That's then obstructing, and that's crossing the line. And I know there's going to be challenges there. But if all they're saying is, hey, we're not going to help you, we're going to stay out of your way, we're not going to assist you, then that's their right. But it's also the federal government's right to say, well, hey, then we're not going to send you any money. So, and if Congress can make the condition directly related to the purpose of the grant, safety, immigration, enforcement, resource sharing information, you've got an even stronger nexus under the spending clause. We need a constitutional republic city. I'm trying to figure out what you're saying there, because are you trying to say like a city that's is a constitutionally republic? I don't see. Oh, I got what you're saying. Instead of a sanctuary city, a constitutional republic city. Oh, okay. I just had to get that in the context. Well, we've got Second Amendment cities in Texas. So we've got plenty of those in Texas and other states, but I guess it just depends on where you live. So here's where it comes to tricky part in the drafting. Congress cannot say, if you don't agree to these conditions, we will pull all of your Medicaid funding. That's essentially what the Supreme Court said Congress can't do in NFIB versus Sebelis. They can't hold a gun to the head. Congress can calibrate. Punish, they cannot calibrate. So if such a bill passed, what happens next? Immediate litigation, likely in the Ninth Circuit, possibly the Second Circuit, because they're going to judge shop for liberal courts. Eventually, the Supreme Court. Plaintiffs would argue the funding condition is coercive. It lacks sufficient nexus to the program. It violates sentiment principles, and it interferes with local policy powers. The federal government would argue immigration regulation is a core federal function. Funding conditions are clearly stated. Jurisdictions are free to decline funds, and the state regulates funding eligibility, not state behavior. The outcome would likely hinge on proportionality. Is the funding condition tailored? Is it directly related? Is it financially coercive? And yeah, Austin is the liberal city and is the liberal bastion of Texas. It's because it became like the Silicon Valley of the South, is why. But yeah, the country tends to protect the boundaries of structural federalism, but it has also upheld legitimate spending conditions. So this becomes less about ideology and more about drafting discipline. Obviously you want to sit there and draft it stricter, but you got to draft it to where it stands up to Supreme Court precedent and judicial scrutiny, not necessarily what would make all of us out here in the real world happy. Obviously, I would love to see sanctuary cities outlawed, but it's a violation of the Constitution. So I know logically and intellectually that will never happen. Which act of 1871? There's more than one thing that they passed in 1871. I'm just trying to think of which act you're talking about. So let's go look at political strategy versus constitutional strategy. Now, here's a distinction most people miss. Something can be politically effective but constitutionally vulnerable, or constitutionally sound but politically difficult. The temptation in Congress is often maximalism. Draft the most aggressive language possible to energize the base, but aggressive language that triggers immediate injunctions achieves nothing at all. A constitutionally sustainable approach may be narrower but more durable, and durability is power. This is where legislative craftsmanship matters more than the rhetoric. I'll have to look that one up on the Organic Act. I've been looking all this today. My mind's been straight on the spending clause, the supremacy clause, the parliamentary rules of federalism and everything on that. I haven't looked at that one in a while. So now what happens if the filibuster remains? Even if the bill is constitutional, there's a procedural obstacle. If we keep the filibuster, we still need 60 votes to invoke cloture, which means one of three things. We have to build a bipartisan coalition. We have to use budget reconciliation as a vehicle if there are fiscal impacts to use, or we reform the procedures and we remove the filibuster. And that leads us right back to the Senate rules. If the majority party doesn't want to change Rule 22, the limitation is political, not constitutional, and there's a difference. The Federal Reserve has pretty much been going on before then. There was two different Federal Reserve banks. I know a lot of people would love to see the Federal Reserve go, but I don't see how it happens right now with where this country's at. I just don't. Maybe over time, but not right away. Maybe we could set it up to where eventually we could come off of the Federal Reserve, like adopting. If we went to Bitcoin, which actually has almost like a gold standard, but a digital one, and actually has a set amount that you can withdraw and everything, then maybe we could eliminate the Federal Reserve. But right now, if we eliminate the Federal Reserve, our country would go broke. Because, I mean, we know the gold's not important, Ox, but obviously they can't audit it or show it, because if it did, and China or Russia or if our debt holders saw that the gold wasn't there, or at least not the amount that we've said, then guess what? They're going to become calling for their bonds. They're going to be calling all their bonds in, and we're not going to be able to pay them. Because right now we're just paying interest because they believe we have that money there. If we don't have that money there, then, well, we got a problem. And so that's where I think we've got our issue there. I need to adjust my camera a little bit so more people can see me. Let me try to do something real quick. Okay. I was trying to make it to where on my YouTube, the YouTube one that looks like it's in the vertical one where y'all can see more of my head. I had a little zoomed in too much for YouTube there. So there we go. That should be a little better for anybody to see me that's not watching in long form than it's watching in the portfolio view. I was hoping that my the guy that runs my the podcast network I'm on, see if he had shared it, because I was hoping I'd see my numbers get back up to normal. But until X fixes their issue right now, because I usually have like 1,000 viewers on Law Native Patriots X, and then the Patriots Prayer Network X, which also anybody that enjoys this content, please also go check out the Patriot Prayer Network. There's a bunch of other Christian conservative content creators on there. Also, just take a little break here. We are going to be broadcasting live from CPAC March 25th through the 28th. So if you're not can't make it there, please check us out. Hopefully I'll know what 2-hour slots I'm going to be on later here in the next couple of weeks or so I can let everybody know. But try to get us, or you can just catch it all day really on the Patriots Prayer Network Rumble, because we're hoping to have some really good interviews set up. Don't know all who we're going to get to interview yet. Some of it will be pre-scheduled. Some of it we will get while we're there, because especially with it being midterms, a lot of times certain congressional members and stuff that are senators that are running for election, they'll just stop by all the media desks. So if I just happen to be on my 2-hour time slot when, I don't know, Ted Cruz or whatever comes by, they're walking in to go speak, and they've got time, or they're coming off of their speech and they got time to stop by the media desk, I might get that interview. So we'll see. Obviously, if you can make it out there, stop by and come see us, because you've got the Remnant or Eddie, then you've got the Viking and a bunch of other people that are going to be there. So we hope to see y'all, and thank you for y'all's support. Please like, follow, share, subscribe. Let's try to push this out. Also, please go to the website you see scrolling across the bottom of the screen, No Kings on the Hill with drhilllaw.com. There you can catch this and this episode and all previous episodes. Also, you can, on the homepage, all the links to my other social media pages there, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. They're all on there. Follow me on TikTok, and try to follow the No Kings on the Hill Facebook page and the YouTube, because I'm on TikTok live every night. And if you can get on there, you can you're welcome to either come on there, and if you would like to see a specific subject or content covered, let me know. Usually I have my co-host with me, but he wasn't. Was real busy today. He's working at the Sorry about that there, guys. Lost something there. I don't know what happened, but lost my internet or whatever. So it took me down and now it's got me back up. So hopefully I didn't lose everybody and y'all are back. But like I said, please check us out at the CPAC, and hopefully my co-host will be back next week. I don't know if he'll be able to make it to CPAC, but look forward to seeing y'all there and meeting some of the people, some of our viewers live in person. Also, please check out the website. Now it looks like I got to gain back all of my viewers because I lost everybody. So I don't know what happened there. It just kind of cut out. So please, thanks for joining here on No Kings on the Hill. If you can get a chance to get back up, please do. I know that usually X is a whole lot faster, but we've been having issues with X. I don't know what's going on. On the X's website, it's no longer pushing out like physical. It's no longer pushing out physical stuff of people's posts. It's no automatically posting them, so it's affecting the amount of views we're getting. I'm going to try to share this one more time because I'm trying to get it to somebody else. I need to tap it, see if I can get it on Law Native so it'll actually be on there, and then I can get hopefully a whole lot more people in here for the second half of the show. And I'll get back here in a second, guys. If I had my co-host with me, I'd have him talking right now, but he's not. I'm just trying to get. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. All right. Now I need to get. Almost got everything done here. So I can hopefully get this on the Law Natives. And there we go. All right. Okay, dokie. Hopefully that will help get the numbers back up, and we'll actually get a lot better numbers now that I got everything pushed out. All right, so let's get back in there. So I was at the structural framework for the doing a bill on out on having to do with sanctuary cities and everything. So now let's imagine Congress does reform Senate procedure. Well, actually, we're talking about the filibuster too. So let's imagine Congress does reform Senate procedure. Instead of eliminating deliberation, it restores a modified previous question motion. Guaranteed debate window, e.g. 30 hours. Majority motion to end debate after that window. Recorded vote. That balances minority voice, majority role, and legislative accountability. It forces senators to vote, not hide behind procedural delay, and it realigns the Senate with constitutional majority principles while preserving deliberation, just like the House does. Do we really want to keep the filibuster, which was literally inadvertently created by a traitorous murderer? Because Aaron Burr was the one who suggested, by suggestion as a vice president, to get the Senate to remove the filibuster, to remove the previous question motion, which then created, at the time, it was a 2/3 vote filibuster. And then it went and didn't go down to 3/5 or 60 votes until 1975. But I mean, it's like, come on, do we really want to follow something that literally somebody who was charged with treason and the murder of Alexander Hamilton. It's time to get rid of the filibuster, at least the zombie filibuster. We can still do the debate filibuster, and whether we do the previous question motion, it has a 30-hour time limit, or we do the standing filibuster that doesn't have a time limit, and it gives everybody the amount of time that they feel like they can stand up there and debate on of the minority party. And then once that's over, we vote. We can do it. Oh yeah, Patriots Prayer Network is great. Eddie, I got blessed with coming on here. Usually I have like 1,000, 2,000 people in this live. Right now it's only like 20 or 30, but that's because the main accounts, it's not my streams that I get the most views on. It's Law Natives and Eddie's. And because X is, and it's usually on X, but because of the issue that they're having with pushing for some reason, when you go live, it doesn't push it out as a post. You have to physically do it now. It just shows that you're live on your icon. So that's really been hurting the views. But yeah, no, at Patriot Prayer Network, I mean, it's great because I would have never got this chance to go to CPAC and actually get to broadcast from CPAC. Literally, our booth is going to be one or two booths down from Fox News, and we're going to be right next to Newsmax. I mean, so yeah, it's pretty amazing. I just got lucky. I was in the right TikTok live at the right time, and I sent him my web address and said, I was just asking if he would let me like co-host or be a guest host on his podcast. And then he was like, oh, what he said, he sent me his number and said, hey, why don't you just come bring your show on my network instead of you just doing I was like, hell yeah. Yeah, no, I aired the Turning Point halftime show on my podcast. I mean, on my TikTok live. Yeah, that was beautiful. I know Eddie, he's been the Turning Point. He's met President Trump, JD Vance. He's been to CPAC pretty much every year. He knows a lot of those people. So yeah, I can't wait because I have a feeling that that's really going to help. I'm going to have a full week there to get all the stuff I can done. And it's going to really help grow my following and my viewers. So now let's go with the long-term consequences. Now think about the long-term institutional implications of that. Congressional Republicans would never say this, but if Congress exercises vast centralizing power through control of the purse, future Republican-controlled Congresses will have the same tool to spend for completely different policy ends. Federalism is a two-way street. Structural solutions don't asymmetrically favor one political ideology over another. Therefore, any attempt to increase federal leverage points should be done with an eye towards structural humility. Our founding document doesn't just give power to the majority, it restrains the power of the majority. And sometimes that restraint is where wisdom comes from. So the real question is not, can Congress ban sanctuary cities? The real question is, can Congress legislate within constitutional boundaries, withstand judicial scrutiny, navigate Senate procedure, and accept the long-term structural consequences? Never read that book. I'll have to look at it. That's the institutional challenge, and that's the level at which governance should be debated. So I've got a little bit longer. I thought I had created enough for almost an hour, but even with that slowdown, I didn't. So that's why I love having a guest host because a co-host, because you can bounce off of each other. And usually when it's me and him, I have very little scripted. I'll have little talking, like little notes and stuff, so I can remember certain things. But we sit there and kind of bounce off of each other, and the subjects kind of go everywhere. But why I wanted to cover this is because this all falls into the SAVE Act getting passed. This all falls into the election integrity stuff. This falls into the sanctuary city issues. And I'd already done 2 podcasts pretty much covering sanctuary cities. The first week, not last week, the week before, it was the SAVE Act and the Boss v. Illinois Supreme Court case, which had to do with election integrity. Last week was election integrity and some of the immigration, the DHS funding. And then this week I decided to do the government closure, DHS funding, and the filibuster, because I keep on seeing people come up and say, oh, the filibuster is... Oh, I know. I don't know why they don't teach cursive anymore, but that's fine because then we can use cursive as a foreign language. When we're older, our kids won't even be able to, if we want to write in code, we can just write in cursive. I mean, it's funny. But yeah, so that's why I kind of pick this one. I felt like people need to understand that the filibuster has nothing to do with the Constitution. It's not a constitutional, has nothing to do with it. It's a parliamentary role. And then people are arguing that, oh, it's not in line. It's makes it a democracy, not a republic. And actually it does the opposite. The filibuster makes it a democracy, not a republic. Eliminating the filibuster would take us back to a republic, because a republic is supposed to be simple majority and only supermajority in certain areas, because government gets gridlocked whenever there's simple majority because of party factions. Well, the founding documents have been cut. They won't be able to pick up the original founding documents, but obviously they will be able to read the founding documents that have been typed in regular writing. I mean, the good thing is as long as you as long as you write the same words, whether it's cursive or not, and you don't change any of the old English terminology, anything like that, then it's still the same. It's not like you're converting Arabic to English, or you're converting ancient Hebrew to current Hebrew to English or something. You're not losing anything in the translation. It's still English. It's still writing. It's just a different form of writing. So they'll still be able to read and understand the founding documents as they are. It just won't necessarily be able to read the original, which nobody gets to pick up the original founding documents anymore. You can go read them in a museum, stand in front of it for a little bit, and you really can't read it because they're the way they have them lit up and everything. But yeah, so that I don't think is really going to be the big issue, but we'll see. And so, yeah, we need to get all this stuff going and get there's no reason why we should have had 3 government shutdowns in the last year. It all comes down to because of this false belief that, oh, the filibuster is this constitutional thing that keeps a check on the government, when it's not. It was literally not even what was in there when the Constitution was done. It was created, and now because everybody's using it like that, now it just literally stalls government to a gridlock. And then nothing ever gets done. And people can sit there and just argue and whatever, and they don't actually have to do anything. They can sit there and keep arguing and not show anybody anything or do anything. It's ridiculous. So we need to end that, honestly. The filibuster needs to be done. We need to nuke the filibuster, reimpose the previous question motion, which will still give you the standing filibuster, but limit it to 30 hours. And we solve that issue. So, but let me see. I got 10 more minutes. I was trying to think of anything covered. Anybody got any questions about what we've covered today? Let me know, and I will try to answer them. And so I'm hoping that the views will start picking up now that my shared it out. Hopefully Eddie finally shared it out on his page. And I shared it to Law Natives, so hopefully that'll put it up as a post on Law Natives, and we'll start getting some more. Yeah, like Law Natives getting a little more. I got some more on mine now, my X, now that I finally shared it. So cool. But yeah, so we've got to get the SAVE Act needs to be passed. The only reason the Democrats don't want the SAVE Act, the only reason they're going they're pushing all this stuff with legal immigration and everything, is because they don't want to lose power. It's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, there are multiple Supreme Court cases that show that the SAVE Act is not unconstitutional. You've got Crawford v. Marion County. You've got a bunch. I mean, I can't remember all of them top of my head. Just hold 1 second. I will get them pulled up. Yeah, I might actually even go ahead and share it I'm going to go ahead and even share them just to get it going. Let me what do I need? Share screen. Let me get it. I'll get it on here. I'll go ahead and share it, and we'll go over it. Okay. Okay, on stage. There we go. Let me increase a little bit so everybody can see it. Okay, so I mean, yeah, we've got plenty of Supreme Court cases that establish it as being constitutional. Crawford v. Marion County Election Board 2008. The court applied the Anderson verdict balancing test from earlier election cases. The plurality, Justice Stevens, held that the state's interest in preventing voter fraud, preserving voter confidence, safeguarding election integrity justified the minimal burdens imposed. Key doctrinal way, a voter ID law is constitutional if the burden is not severe and the state articulates legitimate regulatory interest. All right. Anderson v. Celebrezze, all the way back to 1983, said it was. Bernadette v. Takashu, 1992. Shelby County v. Holder, 2013. That's what allowed Texas, Alabama, and Georgia to do voter ID requirements. And then the most recent one, Bravovich v. Democratic National Committee, 2021. And this actually even helped make voter ID even more constitutional, because before you had to only do a simple scrutiny test. You had to prove where was the earlier test from? I'm trying to remember, find it where the test was at. I'm trying to find this other test so I can. Okay, yeah, strict scrutiny was there. You only had to meet strict scrutiny for it to be considered unconstitutional. When you go down to Bravovich, it is now disparte impact, which is even higher than strict scrutiny. So this emphasized that mere disparte impact is insufficient without meaningful burden. I mean, which strengthens the constitutionality of voting ID laws even more. So it makes no sense that people are trying to say it's unconstitutional and it's all this or all that. And two, it does not affect states. It is only for federal elections. It specifically states that in it. And this argument about women not being able to vote because of the marriage, their birth, the last name on their ID not matching the last name on their birth certificate, even though nobody's birth certificate has changed when they get married, that would only be up to that. If that happened, it would be because of their states. Because that rule, just like I talked about earlier in this show about how the federal government cannot force states to do a certain thing. So anytime there's a federal matching program or federal something like that, what they do is they leave. So while they can force the states to require proof of citizenship and proof of voter ID for federal elections, they can't force the states on how to implement that or how to enact that. So they tell the states, it is up to you to create the system of how you verify and prove that. Obviously, they can say, oh, yeah, this is good enough, or hey, this isn't good enough. You need to do a little better, and then fight that out in court. But still, they can't just go off the end. And so they have to do that. And that's the funny thing is, so there's nothing. Election laws cannot arbitrarily discriminate between classes of voters, which are not. Election clause supporting constitutional principles. States have primary authority to regulate the times, places, and manner of federal elections, subject to congressional override. So Congress does have the ability to make laws from time to time. Supreme Court's just limited to where it can only be like federal. They can't mess with any state levels, and they can't control the actual voting booths and stuff. But they can make laws as they can monitor the federal elections as far as it goes. And honestly, I don't think the SAVE Act goes far enough. There needs to be a federal nationalized board that makes sure that when mail-in ballots are going out, that they're going to the people that actually say that they're going to, that those people actually still live in that house. And then when they come back, there needs to be a signature card to match, or there needs to be a thumbprint or something to prove that that person did actually fill it out, and that was them who filled it out. Because we know, like, obviously Texas has outlawed ballot harvesting, so you no longer have to worry about a bunch of ballots coming in because one person went over to somebody's house, grabbed their freaking mail-in ballot out of the mail, went in there, talked to the person, filled it out, signed it, voted for one person, and then put it back in the mail, or took it in an envelope and put it in the mail, even though the person was too old to even know what they're saying or whatever. And so that there's no chance that happened in Texas anymore, but other states still allow ballot harvesting. So that's a way to ensure that ballot harvesting doesn't have as much of an effect as it could with mail-in ballots if they'll have that that federal program. And that's still not on states. That's only for federal elections, which is well within the constitutional ability of it. That's well within their constitutional laws. So because reason why the Democrats are fighting so much against this is because they know that we've got the 2030 census coming up. And because they were able to count all the illegal immigrants on the 2020 census, they know if Trump can average 3 to 5 million deportees a year for the rest of his presidency, which is why they're trying to slow down deportations, they know that, well, they're going to be SOL, because come 2030, instead of losing right now, the estimated current seats they're going to lose due to just people moving out of red states is 7 House seats and roughly like 5 or 6 electoral college votes. So based on the current numbers, not including deportations, come 2030, if they hold steady, what the so-called blue wall in 2024 that Kamala Harris needed to get to 270 would only get her to 263. So if you have all that, and now if you take millions of illegal immigrants that are being deported out of those states and they're no longer there, they could possibly lose 20 congressional seats and close to that in electoral college and not win a national election, especially presidency, but even possibly Senate and control the Senate or the House for years to come, 10, 20 years to come, just like the Democrats controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency from 1933 to 1953. And that's what they're afraid of. It has nothing to do that they don't, because if you go back and you play 1990s videos from the 1990s of Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton and Obama, they all supported voter ID. They all supported strong borders. And all of a sudden they don't? It doesn't make sense. And all of a sudden they want to play that they don't. So we're getting close to the end today. So I'm going to go ahead and get with my closing monologue here and then end it out. But so tonight's episode wasn't about individuals. It wasn't about sound bites. It wasn't about which side could scream the loudest. Tonight's episode was about institutional design. The Constitution is defined by lines, not feeling lines, not party lines, institutional lines. Congress can't conscript state officials, case closed. But Congress does have the power of the purse. Congress has the ability to attach conditions on the receipt of federal funds. Congress also has the ability, if it writes legislation correctly, to encourage cooperation without crossing the 10th Amendment line. This is the difference between unconstitutional coercion and law enforcement inducement. And then we divide it into the filibuster, something most Americans believe is constitutional, and it's not. It is a rule of the Senate, a procedural decision, a parliamentary tool that morphed unintentionally when the previous question motion was removed in 1806. It can be changed. It can be reinstated as a speaking filibuster. It can be done away with entirely in favor of majority control of debate. It is not extreme. That is reality. The fact is, the question isn't can we? The question is, will we hold ourselves to the Constitution and own the results? Because leadership means rolling the dice, and rolling the dice means knowing the difference between what is unconstitutional and what is just political suicide. If you like tonight's explanation, if you value someone talking about institutions instead of catchphrases, please follow, like, favorite, and share this episode. Let's take these conversations seriously. Constitutional issues beyond the echo chamber. And remember, we go live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central. Find this episode and all of our episodes at No Kings on the Hill with drhillaw.com and on the Patriots Prayer Network, along with the lots of other awesome Christian conservative personalities. Subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode and connect with us for a weekly live chat. We'll be live streaming, like I said, from CPAC March 25th through the 28th for 2 hours each day. We are there, so make sure to tune in on those days, as we will have some awesome interviews lined up. Or if you plan on attending CPAC, please stop by and say hi at the booth. Again, No Kings on the Hill is about solutions. It's about design. It's about teaching people and informing our populace on constitutional and legislative issues and where we draw the lines on the limit of government power. Until next time, stay solid and God bless, and see you on the Hill.